Well, Henry Pryor, property expert, is with us. That sounds like pretty sensible advice, Henry. Just make sure people can afford their mortgage. What's new about that?
Well, there's this suggestion that, of course, we all need protecting and saving from ourselves when it comes to buying houses, Simon. But what we're seeing here is an end to self-certification, which was something that was brought in by the lending industry, particularly to deal with self-employed people. Obviously, 3.5 million odd people in this country self-employed. The FSA are saying that, of course, you'll be able to use your tax return to be able to deal with that. Clearly, there's still going to be some implications for those who have only recently set up in business. But by and large, actually, the interesting thing from this is it's yet one more reason why perhaps the housing market is set for a slightly tougher time than we've seen over recent years.
Well, that's certainly true if you read the PricewaterhouseCoopers report, who say that if you take away the impact of inflation, house prices may not go up for a decade. What do you make of their findings?
Well, the important thing to remember here is that Pricewaterhouse aren't necessarily saying that house prices themselves are going to fall, just that in real terms, when you adjust for inflation, that they won't be going up as far. So in nominal terms, they will be lower than they are today.
But we've been used to house prices going up 9–10% a year. Inflation's 2.5% or 3% at the moment.
Yeah.
That's a big change on what we've seen before, and certainly not the kind of great investment that people have viewed bricks and mortar as in the past.
Well, I think those of us who've lived in the housing market and worked in the housing market for 20 or 30 years are probably going to be looking at the housing market being very different, the landscape being very different over the coming decade. And the Pricewaterhouse report does give some areas of concern, perhaps for those who are thinking of coming into the market. But as we saw from the RICS survey that's out this morning as well, perhaps falling house prices aren't necessarily a bad thing for those that are trying to come onto the ladder.
And presumably, a lot of this depends on where you are around the country. There's big regional differences as well.
There's absolutely no certain. It's certain that London and the South East is very much detached from the remainder of the market. In London and the South East, you're seeing increased liquidity. People are much more able to borrow the money that is the powerhouse, the generator of the housing market. Further afield, it's a different story, and actually, it's still now quite tough to be able to afford anything at the moment.
Right, and as we were saying, if good news if you're actually probably trying to come onto the housing market, maybe your wages will catch up with the housing market to make it a little bit more affordable. And also, if you're in your home and you don't particularly want to move, falling house prices really doesn't affect you that much.
No, it's not bad news for everybody. Remember, we saw in yesterday's programme the problems that people are finding in the rural economy struggling to get on the housing market. That's mirrored, actually, in the urban scenario too. There is very much becoming a sort of two sections to the housing market, a them and us. And perhaps we're going to see some people, those that can afford to live in houses, and a large majority now who will be renting.
All right, sounds like going back to the 1970s. Henry Pryor, thank you very much indeed. Back to you two.
Thanks very much, Simon. Thank you.